Colm Keaveney, Deputy, 5 minutes.
Controversially, I was recently impressed by comments made by the Deputy Leader of Fianna Fáil at a public meeting on the issue of rural schools that took place in Ballinasloe, and I now appreciate that the comments he made that night were well informed based on his contribution to a Green Paper document when he was first elected in 1992 called The Education in a Changing World, that proposed that at the time with the objective of Fianna Fáil to ensure that the smallest number of teachers you would have in a rural school was 4 teachers. And indeed that document, The Education in a Changing World, planned to eliminate through amalgamation all 1, 2 and 3 teacher schools. I now recognise the informed contribution that has been made in that respect. It can also be said that with some justification that the current Minister for Finance and indeed the Irish people face a greater challenge in many respects which was faced by the very first Minister for Finance in this country. And I am sure, Las Concurla, that the Minister for Education, who I find to be a thinking minister, a listening minister, would have wished for better times. Minister Quinn's vision for education could have been realised in full, but none of us in this chamber get to make a choice about the times we live in, or indeed the challenges that we have to face externally. Instead, we have to face the tests that time presents us, using some courage, some honesty and some calm, rational approach, and not to engage in empty rhetoric on the issue of rural schools. The education budget, which represents around 17% of current government expenditure, is a significant proportion of our revenue in this country. In fact, to put it into context, at over €8 billion, it is the equivalent of under half the amount of the gap between current government expenditure and revenue. Over the course of the next 3 years, yes, we will see posts lost in rural school. And I welcome Deputy McConaughey's conversion to the protection of both education and health, because in the last year of the Fianna Fáil government, you will have had dismissed more staff in the HSE than we will have had attrition over the next 5 years in rural schools. In the last year alone of Fianna Fáil government, you fired 500 health workers in the HSE West, and that puts this into context about Rory Quinn's intention to protect the most vulnerable people in our society in difficult times. Yes, DC, savings cannot be made without the pain that you have imposed on this country.
2 minutes.
But we will do it with consultation with all of the key stakeholders, such as the patrons, the parents, local communities, teachers. Frontline workers in education under this government will not suffer a 15% pay reduction that you inflicted on communities. This government is committed to protecting Croke Park today and the protection of teachers' pay tomorrow. However, pay makes up, as you know, 80% of the total spend in education, so cuts have to be found somewhere. Now, I'd say to the INTO, you are in danger of playing into the hands of Fianna Fáil, who cut 15% of your pay in the past, by seeming to refuse to engage constructively in a discussion on how to manage the current need to cut expenditure while ensuring that the quality of our education is not affected. Doing so would make the case for further cuts of pay inevitable, and that's the real plan of this motion. Even after the changes in thresholds from small primary schools are implemented, the average pupil-teacher ratio in a 2-teacher school will be 7:1, or in a 3-teacher school, 17:1. And as a father of 3 school-going children myself, and as someone from a rural area, I am sensitive to the decisions that are taken with regard to small schools. But I believe that a calm, rational debate is needed that will look at all options, including some that were in your own Fianna Fáil policy in '92, amalgamations, the idea of shared services, the idea of having a super principal across a range of schools, the idea that schools could come together and collectively purchase for better outcome for their children. The gradual nature of a planned change will give schools and communities and stakeholders the opportunity to look at the options that the Minister has highlighted here tonight. The idea of looking at clusters for schools that will work together and serve the need for an area that provides for choice for parents, maximising the opportunity for efficiencies and ensuring that the quality of our education for pupils will be considered and will be a forefront of this government.
Thank you, Deputy Keaveney.